I claim to build a true TRD rock warrior with mostly OEM parts. But just how much rock crawling can it actually do? To find out, I went wheeling with 4 fully built rigs. All of them had lockers front and rear, but all I got was the Toyota A-Track. All of them had long travel suspensions, but all I got was factory shocks from TRD Pro. All of them had 37-inch tires. Well, this one I did have, but mine were the least aggressive one of them all. Man, it looked like I had absolutely zero advantage. Or did I? In fact, we found 3 unexpected advantages where my truck actually outperformed theirs. But of course, in most cases, the fully built rigs were more capable. So we will also review my biggest limitations as an OEM Plus build. At the end of this video, I will also share a few sneak peeks for the next phase of my build. Alright, let's get started. Before the first off-road trip, my biggest concern was not having a locker. Prior to this Tundra, I've been wheeling my FJ for over a decade. But ever since I put it on 35s, A-Track had become pretty much neutered. As you can see, the A-Track was trying to break the spinning wheels. But it simply couldn't brake hard enough for the oversized tires. And for the Tundra, I went even bigger to 37s. So when my friend Gene and Alexis invited me for some wheeling up in New England, we were totally prepared to do some winching. We went in late fall, so there were a lot of water and a lot of leaves to make things extra slippery. And soon enough, I started slipping.
So if you go passenger back and then straight up with a little momentum, you're up there.
You want to try the A-Track?
All right, let's see. Let's do it.
Let's see.
You're very clear. No, nothing ahead of you. Whoa! You're going. You're good.
And to our surprise, my A-Track just kept working on harder and harder stuff. And this last obstacle was pretty interesting. Initially, this tire kept falling back between the pulses, kinda like what was happening with the FJ. But the Tundra's A-Track braked harder and harder and eventually made it through, with 37-inch tires. Both Gene and I were impressed, because the A-Track in my FJ or his Foreigner would never go this hard. Nevertheless, all these initial wheel spin could still be a problem. This was a steep, slippery rock that also required a lot of flex. But with lockers front and rear, Gene made it through without a problem. Although I would love to see A-Track doing its thing again, any wheel spin here would slide me into this wall. So to avoid potential body damage, we pull a line to get me through safely. Not having precise control was the biggest limitations of brake-based traction controls. Nevertheless, this was the only time I needed a pull. The next obstacle was another steep, slippery rock that required big flex. Again, with lockers front and rear, Gene managed to crawl up slow and steady. But unlike the last obstacle, this one did not have a wall to slide into. So we gave A-Track its best shot.
Let's see how far I can
Put the A-Track on.
Yeah, there's no button. It just go on.
So you want to go a little bit, yep. More drive, yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
Keep going. Driver. Yep, you good. More driver. Yep. More driver. Yes, keep coming.
what the hell?
Keep the momentum. Very nice.
That was totally totally unexpected, especially that little slide back near the end. Both of us thought I totally lost it.
Yes, keep coming, keep coming.
But somehow, the Tundra managed to regain traction and crawl up slow and steady. Man, that 8-track was doing work. Or was it? For the initial climb, yes, it was clearly 8-track. But for the final bit, 8-track actually never kicked in. What got me through was my wheelbase. When our rear tires started to climb, my front tires were 17 inches further ahead. This put my truck at a less severe tilt, therefore maintaining much better traction under all 4 tires. We saw the wheelbase advantage again on this obstacle. Gene had to engage his rear locker, and it still took some effort. But with my long wheelbase, the Tundra's 8-track, again, didn't even kick in. Now, both Gene and I understood the physics behind why a long wheelbase is better for hill climbs, but we were still amazed by just how much difference it actually made.
Yes, keep coming.
And the wheelbase was the first unexpected advantage of my Tundra. Nevertheless, on this obstacle, my long wheelbase became a disadvantage. I simply didn't have the breakover like Gene, so I took the bypass. The wheelbase is a double-edged sword, but at least for this trip, it actually did more good than harm.
Have to have momentum. Go.
So to further test this double-edged sword, I went wheeling with 2 highly modified FJ cruisers. The FJs had an even shorter wheelbase, and these 2 also had the Marlin Crawler RCLT, a long travel IFS designed specifically for rock crawling. These FJs belongs to my friend Neil and Chris, and I met them wheeling with my FJ at Roush Creek Off-Road Park. We had a great time hitting some big hill climbs, so I was planning to hit the same trails again with my Tundra. But on our way there, it started snowing, which made some of the hill climbs a little risky. But thanks to Onyx Off-Road's detailed trail rating with photos, I quickly put together a new route that was more manageable. And don't worry, we will come back to those hill climbs later in this video. Onyx Off-Road has been a long-time sponsor for my channel, and I use it for every single trip. On my last trip with Gene, we also encountered a cold snap and woke up to a whole bunch of snow. But thanks to Onyx built-in weather forecast, I saw that coming when we were mapping out our routes, so I was fully prepared. If you decide to give Onyx a try, you can use code Tinkerer or the link in description for 20% off. I would like to thank Onyx for supporting our adventure. Okay, let's go wheeling with the FJs. Again, I have to give props to Tundra's 8-track. It continued to perform even in the snow.
You got 2 weeks. Good job.
At the same spot, both FJs had to use their lockers. Now, this trail might look familiar, because it was the same trail where my FJ struggled with its 8-track. But as you can see, the Tundra's 8-track was a night and day difference on bigger tires and a heavier truck. Nevertheless, with lockers, the FJs made it with noticeably better control. We can also see the impressive articulation from the RCLT. However, if we compare side by side, my stockish Tundra lifted the tire by about the same amount. This again was because of the wheelbase. On steep hill climbs like these, simply having a longer wheelbase could make up for a lot of shortcomings. But in many other cases, especially in an off-road park, a short wheelbase is still where it's at. This trail was called Walk in the Park, and was rated only 4 out of 10. But right after I got on it,
Well, I'm really hung up on the slider. Let me check it out.
meanwhile for the FJs, it was truly a walk in the park. And this was the Yellow Jacket Ridge, and it was rated 7 out of 10. For context, that was the same rating as the Rubicon Trail. But with that nimble short wheelbase and some excellent driving and spotting, Chris crawled through the whole thing with zero drama, with everything covered in snow.
That's good. All right, go slow.
How am I getting out of here? Right straight down here, I guess.
Damn.
And of course, I took the bypass, or we'll be here all day. Now, the most interesting discovery actually took place at the parking lot. Despite having a 19-inch longer wheelbase, my Tundra could actually turn just as tight as the FJ. In fact, according to the factory specifications, the RCSB's turning circle was 1.5 feet smaller than that of the FJ. In comparison, the wheelbase of a 3rd Gen Tundra is also 19 inches longer than my RCSB. Basically, the same wheelbase difference as mine to the FJs. But the 3rd Gen's turning circle was over 7.5 feet wider. This super tight turning circle was the second unexpected advantage of my Tundra. Whether it was negotiating turns on the trail or just pulling a U-turn on the street, the RCSB just didn't drive like a full-size truck. But of course, for hardcore rock crawling like the Yellow Jacket Ridge, my Tundra will never be as capable as the FJs. But it does make longer trips much more comfortable. Everything is a trade-off. My goal for this Tundra build is to enjoy both rock crawling and overlanding as much as possible. But I simply can't have it all. Or can I? This 3rd Gen Tacoma belongs to my friend Diana and Chris. In my opinion, it was a build that truly maxed out both rock crawling and overlanding. Just like the Blue FJ, this Tacoma had 37-inch mud terrain tires, lockers front and rear, as well as the same Marlin Crawler RCLT. But on top of that, it also had the Archive Garage rear shock tower relocation, which gave it significantly more articulation than any trucks in this video. Now, in addition to the top-of-the-line off-road mods, this Tacoma also had a top-of-the-line overland setup. In fact, right before we came to Rouse Creek, Diana and Chris just came back from a 5,000-mile trip from the East Coast to Moab, Utah. Yeah, this Tacoma truly had it all. So let's see how our trucks compare off-road. For the 3rd time, I have to say I was very impressed by Tundra's 8-track. This obstacle was called Tip Top and was rated 6 out of 10. Most short wheelbase would struggle crawling the staircase. My FJ was front and rear locked and air down to 11 psi. But I still had to give it a decent bump to make up the ledge. But with the Tundra, I simply stay in steady throttle and let 8-track do its thing. I would say it was a pretty smooth crawl. But again, with lockers, the Tacoma crawled it even smoother. And walk in the park. In the last 2 trips, my Tundra always had the wheelbase advantage for hill climbs. But not anymore, because the wheelbase of this Tacoma was actually 3 inches longer. And yes, the wheelbase was a double-edged sword, but because of its taller lift, the Tacoma still had a better breakover. Basically, this Tacoma was better at everything. Or was it? This hill climb was steeper than anything we have done thus far.
Whoa!
You okay?
Yeah.
I hope our truck doesn't do that.
Oh no.
It was one of the hills I originally planned to do with the FJs. Again, I just put it in for low and let 8-track eat. I did have to back up and give it a little bump, but only at one spot.
Straighten out now. Okay, load the converter and you gotta bump it like head Driver. Nice. All right, your turn, Diana.
The almighty Tacoma kinda struggled on this hill. At one point, Chris even had to stab some rocks.
Nice.
And just as we thought it made it,
Whoa! That's a three-wheeling. Holy shit.
Stop.
OMG.
fortunately, Diana made it without any scratches. But why did the Tacoma behave so differently? The elephant in the room was its weight. But more specifically, it was weight distribution. With the alucab camper, the Tacoma was much heavier in the rear. And when it was tilted up on a steep hill, the additional weight transfer left almost no weight under the front. Now, we didn't measure the exact weight distribution on the Tacoma, but in my previous video about GVWR, we measured the weight of this 3rd Gen Tundra that had a very similar setup. This Tundra was 700 pounds heavier on the rear axle, so Diana's Tacoma was probably in the same ballpark. In comparison, with an empty bed, my RCSB actually weighed 700 pounds more in the front, the direct opposite to the Tacoma. So for this obstacle, weight distribution alone outweighed all other benefits the Tacoma had combined. And this was the third unexpected advantage we discovered. But of course, I was not comparing apples to apples. With the Tacoma set up exactly how it was, Diana and Chris could simply head out for another 5,000 mile trip. Meanwhile, I got absolutely nothing for camping, so I was kind of cheating with an empty bed. Nevertheless, I think we learned between rock crawling and overlanding, we really can't have it all. But I would say this Tacoma was probably as close as it gets. After 3 off-road trips with the Tundra, here are the few things I wanted to change. First, I want lockers. Even though I was very impressed with the A-Track, some situations simply required the ultimate control. Second, I want more clearance, so maybe more lift, or even bigger tires. But I also don't want to lose sight of drivability, so I really need to think this through. And third, although it may sound like I was blaming the camper for this hill, This video focused strictly on the off-road aspects. And like I said earlier, I also want to enjoy overlanding. My current rooftop tent setup does have some limitations, especially on longer trips. So I'm still trying to find the right balance between weight and comfort. If you have any ideas or suggestions, I would love to hear them in the comments below. At last, a sincere thank you to Alexis and Jean, Chris and Neil, as well as Diana and Chris for wheeling and filming with me.
Driver, please. There you go.
This video wouldn't be possible without you guys. Also, a big shout out to Jean's son, Adam, for filming a lot of the off-road footage. Even though he's still a few years from having his driver's license, this kid is a serious gearhead. Adam also started dabbling with YouTube, so it will mean a lot if you go subscribe to his channel. I left the social links of all my friends in the description below. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.